Welcome everybody. It's good to see you all. It's good to be here with you. And I want to start the way I start most things, which is just taking a minute. So both feet flat on the ground, if you don't mind. You can rest your hands on your lap. You can close your eyes if you feel comfortable closing your eyes. If not, just choose a spot in front of you. And I just want you to take 3 deep breaths. And I want you to breathe in through the nose and hold it. And exhale slowly. And as you do, just notice what it is you're feeling. Notice what it is you're thinking about. So just take 3 deep breaths. Hello. I just want you to think about what you noticed. And have you guys ever heard of zones of regulation? Anybody here heard of zones of regulation? So take a look. You can be in the blue zone, which is, man, I'm bored already. I can't believe we had to do a mindfulness activity, right? You can be in the green zone. I'm good. I've got a lot of good energy. Be in the yellow zone, stressed. I wish I chose a different topic, right? And then if you're in the red zone, probably just take a break, all right? Because it means that you're in a pretty bad space to be, right? So do we have any blues in here? How many blues do we have? We got a blue? Yeah. I might be in a blue if I had to listen to me. Did you guys listen to my talk earlier? So yeah, I'd be in blue. You've listened to me talk for a long time. So there's going to be a reason to this madness at some point. But I want to talk about emotional regulation. And I want you to think about the last time you lost your temper. Anybody here ever lose your temper? Oh good, I'm not alone. All right, what did you sound like? What did you do? What dumb thing did you do or say? Does anybody else say really dumb things when they're upset? Yeah, I'm not alone, right? All right, so why is it? Because you guys are good people, you're bright people, you're here on a Saturday, right? And so why is it that we, in these moments, that we can become so mean and hurtful, especially to people that we care about, right? So I want to talk about that. So it's interesting, we learned a lot about emotional regulation. We've known things for as long as 170 years about emotional regulation that I think we're still not really paying attention to. So this guy, Phineas Gage, he taught us a lot about emotional regulation. He was not a doctor, he was not a scientist. He worked on the railroad. And what he did was, he was in Vermont, and lots of hills in Vermont, so they need to blow up the side of the mountain to lay railroad tracks, right? So that was his job. So what he would do is his job was to drill a hole in the ground, to pack it down with rocks and other things, put explosive in there, pack it down with rocks, with a tamping rod, step back, light it, blow a hole in the side of the mountain. So that was his job. So Gage had a very bad day one day, and he was tamping this down, and a spark must have caught the explosive, and this tamping rod went up through his head and out the top of his brain, landing about 80 feet away. And he was stunned, he was like blood and brain all over the place. But he was actually able to get up and walk and go into town to get help. What it did was it went through this part of his brain. This tamping rod went right up through this part of his brain. The remarkable thing is he had a sense of humor. He got to the doctor. They put him on a carriage. They took him into the town. He had to wait for the doctor. And then he says, doctor, you're going to be busy this afternoon fixing all of this. He was able to do a lot of things that we wouldn't expect his brain to be able to do. And he made almost a full recovery, except he lost the use of his left eye. But otherwise, he looked pretty normal. But he wasn't the same guy. What they said was, his friends described Gage as fitful and irreverent, indulging at times in the grossest profanity, capricious and vacillating, and being radically changed so decidedly that his friends and acquaintances said, this isn't the same guy. Right? Now, when you're melting down and you're yelling at your parents or friends or whatever, people would say, oh, that's not the same person. Right? When I'm yelling at my kids, you wouldn't think, oh, that's the same guy who was up there speaking. Right? In fact, there are times when I melt down that I engage in the grossest profanity. I will admit it. I am vacillating and capricious, and I've been radically changed so much that people that know me, they'd say, oh, Doug wouldn't talk like that to his kids. But sometimes they do. I'm not proud of that. But there are some times that I do. And so Gage can help us understand this, because this part of our brain is in charge of a lot of things. right? It's in charge of our ability to, and we talked about this earlier, and manage our impulses, our emotional regulation, initiate tasks, to persist, to have empathy for others. Have you ever noticed that when you're really upset with someone, people you care about, all of a sudden it's like, I don't really care what your problem is. And then you begin to yell and do whatever it is that you might do that can be hurtful. It's harder to focus our attention and to plan. What this guy says, he's a neuroscientist, he says, this helps us do the harder thing when it's the right thing to do. It helps us bite our tongue when we want to say the thing we shouldn't say, right? It helps us to get off the phone or off YouTube so that we can finish my assignment, right? It's harder to do that, but this is the part of the brain that helps us do that. There's this myth that we are primarily rational beings. And what we know is that when we're melting down like that, we're not that rational, right? When you're yelling at people, or you're shutting down, or you're refusing to do something, you're not that rational, right? Because you know it's not a good choice. Does this make sense? But the thing is, we are survival beings, so there's going to be a little bit of science in here, not too much, but what happens is we've got this nervous system. Our nervous system has two basic parts. The sympathetic nervous system is what triggers our stress response. And then we've got the parasympathetic nervous system, which gets us back to homeostasis. It gets us calm again. And the thing is that it's either or. You're either in one or the other. You're either triggering the stress response or you're going back to homeostasis. You can't be in both at the same time. Every living organism has this simplistic nervous system where they get ready and they can fight. The fruit fly can do this, right? Their stress response gets triggered and they engage, or they go back to homeostasis. So here's the thing, that fear is our response to a real and immediate threat, right? So that's when we are scared of something, when there's a grizzly bear coming at us, that is fear. But what this prefrontal cortex does is it allows us to access anxiety. What anxiety is are thoughts about potential threats. Right? So it's not a grizzly bear coming at us, but it's we're in the woods and maybe a grizzly bear will come here and get me. Right? There's a whole different way. But the thing is that our stress response responds the same way, whether it's I'm in the woods and I don't know if there's a grizzly bear around versus a grizzly bear is coming right at me. It's still triggering that stress response of ours. See, part of what this part of our brain does is it allows us to be time travelers. It allows us to think and worry about what's coming up, right? What happens if I don't get into the college I want to get into? What happens if my parents split up? What happens if, right? And so we can think in the future, or we can think in the past. Like, I can't believe I said that and I humiliated myself in class, right? I can't believe I didn't make that team. And so we can go and be time travelers, either in the future or in the past. And this part of our brain also allows us to mind read. We can wonder, what do people think about me? Right? And the thing is that we're really bad at both time travel. We're very bad at predicting what's going to happen in the future. And we're also not good at reading minds. But our body responds as if they're true. So if I've got to worry that my parents are going to split up, or I've got to worry that I'm not going to make the team, then all of a sudden my body responds as if that's actually happened. Does this make sense? And so the thing is, anxiety is meant to protect us. And we need anxiety, because what anxiety is saying is, here's all the things in your future that could be a problem for you. They might not be, they might be, but might not be. But anxiety will tell us all these things in the future that could be a problem. The problem is, most of the things are not going to be a problem. It tells us where all the landmines are, but it doesn't tell us whether they're live or not, right? Anybody else have a smoke detector in your house near your kitchen? My smoke detector goes off all the time. Does yours ever go off? Like, I burn food a lot. I burn a toast a lot, right? And all of a sudden, that's the way it's meant to work. It's not meant to be right. It's not meant to only go off when there's a fire that's going to burn the house down. Its job is to go off every time there might be a fire. Does this make sense? And so this is how anxiety works. It's not meant to be right every time. It's just meant to say, oh, that could happen. Oh, that could happen, as a way of keeping us alive. That bad thing could happen, right? And so what we do, okay, a little more brain science. I'm sorry. But when we take a look, there are three different parts of the brain. There's the cortex, the limbic system, and the brainstem. And they each have different things that they do. The cortex is that thinking part of our brain. You guys are working hard at this now, trying to listen and make sense of what I'm saying, and it's what you use when you're in school. It's what you use to try and work out relationships with other people. We're using these skills a lot. This yellow part, the midbrain, is our alarm system. And its job is just to tell us whether we're safe or not. And then this brainstem, this nervous system, is the thing that reacts. So what happens is stress pushes us into the lower parts of our brain. What it does is, you guys have heard of the fight, flight, and freeze response, right? So what stress does is it triggers that, it tells our nervous system something's wrong, and then our nervous system says, you gotta fight it, you gotta leave quickly, or you gotta hide and shut down. So these are the main choices that happen. But when we get to that place, we lose some really important things, don't we? Think about the last time you melted down. Were you good at listening? Probably not. Were you good at being creative? Hey, there's a better idea out there. We lose flexibility. We lose some very important things. Because if I'm getting chased by a grizzly bear, it's not helpful for me to listen to the grizzly bear and hear what's going on. It's not helpful for me to come up with creative ideas because I've got to make a decision now, right? It's not helpful to be flexible. Well, I could go this way or I could go this way. What do you think, bear? That wouldn't be helpful, right? Oh, I hope the bear doesn't get hurt, right? That wouldn't be helpful. We lose memory because it's hard for it. We can't access the cortex, so we lose sequential memory. Have you ever been in an argument or something and someone says, this is what you said? And you're like, no, I didn't say it. This is what you said and this is what I said. Most of the time, I can't even remember that stuff. Have you ever been so upset that you couldn't find the words? Or the only words you could find were 4 letters long, and that's like me, and you feel like you gotta yell them sometimes, right? Or this inhibition, where it's like, I shouldn't do that, but all of a sudden you do it. Right? So these are all the things we lose. I shouldn't say that, and then boom, you say it. Right? These are all the things that we lose. I've been married for 33 years now. My wife and I have been in some arguments. And never once have I said, hey, honey, let me listen to you. I'm doing all the talking. It's never happened, right? It's never happened that I said, hey, I can do it your way this time. I want to be the guy who says that, right? Oh, this must be really even harder for you than it is for me. I want to be able to do that. I can't access that when my nervous system is saying I'm in fight or flight. It doesn't mean that I can't access that at some point. I just can't access that in that moment. Is this making sense? So, but the thing is, what do we ask others to do when we're just, listen to me. Come up with another solution. Be flexible. We begin to talk about all of these things, and none of these things can people get access to. Welcome. Right? So when we are melting down, have you ever noticed that there's all sorts of stuff that comes up? So all of these things happen. Our breathing rate increases. Any idea why our breathing rate increases? We get oxygen into our bloodstream. Our blood flows to our skeletal muscles. Have you ever noticed you clenching your fists or pacing when you're really upset? That's because your blood flow is moving and you've got to feel like you've got to move because it's getting ready for the fight or to flee, right? Our heart rate increases to get that blood going. Our blood sugar levels increase. Anybody know why? What does blood sugar give us? Energy. So it gives us energy, right? Our pupils dilate. Why might that be? So we can see danger, right? So we can see more of what's around us. Our intestinal muscles relax. Why would that be helpful? Like if I'm running from a grizzly bear, it doesn't seem like my intestinal muscles relaxing would be all that helpful, right? But here's what happens, is our bodies conserve energy. Have you ever had to give a talk, a presentation, and gotten dry mouth? Or gotten the butterflies? That's your digestive system shutting down. And what our brains do, because we've got to have this energy to fight or flee, what our bodies do is they shut down the things that take up the most energy. What are those things? The brain is one. The brain takes up only 2% of our body mass, but uses 20% of our energy. So we shut that down so we have energy to fight or flee. The other thing is our digestive system uses up a ton of energy, and so we shut that down. So here's what happens. Remember I talked about the limbic system being the part of our brain that determines whether we're safe or not? If we feel like we're safe, then we can access our cortex, right? if we don't feel like we're safe, then it triggers our fight, flight, and freeze response. Does this make sense? So how we feel in what our brain is telling us, whether we're safe or not, is really, really important to determine whether we can access our best brains or whether we melt down. And so we talk about being full brain or lower brain, right? When we can access our whole brain, that's full brain. We talk about being regulated or dysregulated, but it seems like, and I think that this is actually real data now, is that it's like we lose 30 IQ points. We just do things that are less smart. We make our worst choices in these moments, right? It's almost like if they did a brain scan, my brain would look like this when I'm melting down, right? But this is kind of what it feels like. But the other thing is dysregulation is contagious. Have you ever been with somebody who's yelling at you? Have you ever noticed what happens to your heart rate? Have you ever noticed what happens, how likely you are to yell back? How much you want to yell back? It's contagious. It's very hard to be with someone who's dysregulated and not become dysregulated yourself. But what happens is you've lost 30 IQ points, they've lost 30 IQ points, and that's when we feel like we need to solve the problem. And that's kind of the worst time to solve the problem, right? So what does the lower brain look like? Well, it looks like this, right? But it also looks like this. Oppositional behavior, like when we're just like, I'm done, I can't do anymore, I'm not going to do it. That's dysregulation. Feeling overwhelmed, not being able to think straight because you can't, because you're so stressed about things. Zoning out. Being able to just, there are some people who look like they're doing everything, they're getting straight A's, they're getting everything in, but inside they're so perfectionistic that it's very, very stressful for them. And we may not be able to see that they're dysregulated, but they are. So what puts us into lower brain? What triggers that for us? What triggers that limbic system to say, oh, I'm in danger? Really three basic things. Feeling disconnected. When someone rejects us, that'll do it. Feeling devalued, or feeling powerless. Oftentimes, these are the things that make us feel most likely to be dysregulated. And then basic needs. Anybody else here get hangry? Like, yeah, and sometimes I'm also like, when I'm tired, I'm really irritable. Does that happen for anybody else? Yeah, so like I'll be tired and I'm a much worse dad at 9 p.m. than I am 9 a.m. because I'm just more irritable, right? My kids never saw me at 9 a.m. They've got no idea what a great dad I was, right? Like they've got no idea because they only got the 9 p.m. dad, which is always makes me sad. But here's the thing, that our feelings often catch us off guard, right? When you've melted down, it's like, oh, there it is. It's often hard to predict that this is going to happen. It just shows up. But think about the decisions you make. We make some of our worst decisions when we are dysregulated. And one of the things that we do is we get this sense of urgency. We also exaggerate what's going to happen. If I don't get this assignment in, I'm never going to be able to get an A in this class, right? I was thinking about this on the way drive here. I was like, one time it's predictable for me to get really dysregulated is going on a trip. Like I want to leave, I want to beat traffic, right? And my family is always a little bit slower, and it would always drive me nuts. And so here I'd be like, my urgency is we've got to leave now, or else it's going to ruin our vacation. Well, I may be 20 minutes late, but it's a week-long vacation. Why is it that I'm worried about that? When I'm dysregulated, I can't see that. I feel this sense of urgency. If I don't talk to my friend right now, then this is going to be a problem. Then nobody's, whatever it is, this will never get resolved, right? But this is what ends up happening for us. All right, so we talked about what dysregulation looks like, but what does regulation look like? This is kind of the sweet spot for emotional regulation, isn't it? Like it was, we're in the womb, we don't have to have diapers, we can pee and poop, we get our food, it's not pureed, right? It's like, life is good, we hear our parents' heartbeat, and it soothes us. Right? And then we come out, and what do our parents do? All they do, parents of newborns, is soothe them, right? All we do is figure out how do we soothe them. When they get dysregulated, then we have this list of things, like what are their needs? We think in our brains, okay, do they need to be changed? Do they need to be, do they need a nap? Do they need food? And then when those things don't work, we think, what's the relationship? Who's somebody that they calm down with, right? If it's they're with their aunt and then they just want to calm down and be with their mom, right? And then they quiet in their mom's arms. And then have you ever noticed how regulating rhythm is? Who, when they get stressed, likes to listen to music? So that's rhythm, right? Have you ever noticed that there are rocking chairs and gliders for kids? There are bouncy chairs. All of these things are rhythm. And the reason why rhythm is so important, and I love like a swing, I find being on a swing or a hammock really regulating. The reason why these things are regulating is because everything that regulates us, whether it be music or being on a swing or whatever, falls within the cadence of a mother's heartbeat. And so it's like, okay, so this quiets that nervous system and starts telling us that we're okay. But here's the interesting thing is, why do we stop? Why do we stop soothing when we get dysregulated? Because what happens when you guys get dysregulated now? What typically happens if you were to yell at a parent? Generally, you get punished, right? Or they yell back at you. But here's the thing. When they're kids and they're screaming, we soothe them when they're 10 months old. But when we get older, we start punishing. Have you noticed that? Why don't we keep soothing? Because when we are dysregulated, it's always much more helpful to soothe than it is to punish. Because what does punish do? Punish makes us feel disconnected. It often is, go to your room, devalued, we don't want you here right now, and disempowered, you don't have a choice. And then we get surprised when we punish people and they get more upset. So why don't we soothe, right? So here's the thing, and I want to talk about ways that you guys can begin to learn about regulation, but the first thing is it's developmental. It's all that prefrontal cortex. So if you're not very good at it now, that's okay, because it's going to get better, because it's all based on this part of our brain developing. And yours, if you're 16, it's only about halfway developed, right? And these are skills we can learn. All right, so we'll hit some strategies, and then and hopefully you'll find these helpful. We'll see. So the first is we need to be aware of our dysregulation, because you're going through stages of dysregulation and regulation throughout your day, right? There are days when there are times when you're more tired than other people. There are times when you're more anxious than other times, right? These are going to go up and down, and being aware of them keeps it from catching us off guard. But the first step is we all get dysregulated multiple times during the day. So let's not say that there's shame in dysregulation, right? We all get dysregulated. The problems occur when we are unaware of our dysregulation. So they did an interesting study. They took a look at parole hearings. And what they found, they wanted to see who gets parole and who doesn't get parole. And they took a look at all sorts of things, like how violent the offense was, how much time they spent in prison, how remorseful they were. There was one thing that determined whether people got parole or not. Any idea what that might be? Time of day. They looked at 1,400 studies. The people with the 8:30 parole hearing, 40% of them got parole. If you had the 11:30 hearing, nobody got parole in the 11:30 hearing. Any idea why that might be? Go ahead.
Judges are like more impatient.
Yes. More impatient? And they're hungry. They're more impatient. They've been sitting there for ages. They lose empathy, right? These judges don't mean to be giving out justice based on how hungry and how sick they are of sitting. But that's why right now, after listening to me for an hour and a half in there and then having to come here and listen to me, you're dysregulated, right? Because it's hard to sit and focus for that long. At some level, we all get dysregulated. And that's why I'm not going to have you fill out your evaluations right now, because you wouldn't be very good to me because you're so dysregulated from sitting for so long. I'm joking. But that is what happens. My guess is that when we can walk into an 8:30 class, we bring a very different kind of energy than we do right before lunch. And we should know that, and your teachers do too. Anesthesiologists, they make 3 times more mistakes in the afternoons. They don't make many mistakes, but they make more mistakes in the afternoon, right? That's part of their dysregulation. And then there's one more important one that I think is interesting. In Louisiana, they love their football. So what they did was they wanted to see, okay, if the LSU football team loses in an upset, do judges change how they sentence people? Especially juvenile defendants. Take a look. After a team loses in an upset on a Saturday, the next week judges add 1,300 days of punishment to juvenile defendants. Because they're more irritable. They lose it, and they aren't aware of this, right? But this is how we show up. This is what happens. This is how our emotions catch us off guard. And so what we want to do is we want to begin with some level of awareness and noticing as the time goes on about what's my emotional regulation like. What do I need right now? Do I need to get up and move because I'm in the blue zone? Do I need to talk to somebody because I'm in the yellow zone, right? This awareness gives us information that helps us make good decisions, that helps us get into the green zone. Because when this stuff is going, it's really hard to bring our best brains to things. That's right, like this, but there's lots of different ways of just noticing. What zone are you in? What energy are you bringing to this, and how can I manage that energy? The more we're aware of it, the more we can then control it. The problem is, so oftentimes, this stuff we don't get in front of this, and it catches us off guard. What we don't know can hurt us when we're not aware of it. When we've had a bad day at school and our younger sibling asks us for something, and we snap at them, right? Or we snap at our parents. It has nothing to do with what's happening for them. They snap at you. This is what's happening, is we're not aware of it, and then we don't take care of it. The second is, can we make deposits in our brain bank? There's a guy named Stuart Shanker who wrote a book called Self-Reg. I really like what he says is, can we move from misbehavior to stress behavior? And when I think about that, it's not just you, it's your parents. When they misbehave, your parents misbehave, right? They yell at times they shouldn't yell. They may snap at you. They may snap at one another. What is it that shows up in those moments? And so what he says is, it's about stress. And so there are 5 domains of stress. The first is biological, right? This is being hangry or being tired or being, for some people there are sensory issues, right? Like it's too hot or too cold. Emotional, that there's a lot of feelings that catch us off guard just because of their intensity. There's cognitive stress, sitting and listening is stressful. Being able to trying to solve problems, working on a paper is going to deplete your brain energy. Social is, there's a lot of social stresses in our lives, especially in high school. And then pro-social stress is an interesting one, because pro-social stress gets at both. What it really says is, when I choose to do something, do I do it for me or do I do it for other people? And so if I get fined $20 and I give half to my brother, I'm frustrated because I didn't get to keep the whole thing. If I keep the whole thing, then I might feel guilty that I didn't share, right? But this stress shows up. If I don't help out somebody else on a group project, because I can get a better grade because of it, I feel guilty. But then if I do help them out and I'm doing all the work, then I can feel frustrated, right? This is pro-social stress. And so he talks about these different stresses and how stressful is school. Stress, like it's on all of these, right? Like if I'm at home and and I'm hungry, I can get a snack, right? If I'm doing email and I'm exhausted, I can take a break. You guys don't get that in school, neither do your teachers. It's not like, okay, I'm just going to take a break now, catch you guys later. No, it doesn't work that way, right? And so, have you ever lost your temper and not been stressed? Have you ever noticed there are times when you can handle things and it's just fine, and other times the same thing can happen and you'll lose your cool? Generally, that's because there's other stresses happening in your lives in that moment, right? That you're bringing into this. I've had a bad day at school, so I'm more likely to blow up at my parents versus I have a great day at school and I'm coming in and I'm feeling great. I'm much more likely to help out with dinner, whatever that may be. What stress does is it depletes our energy. And I like what Lisa Feldman Barrett says. She talks about our brain balance. That when we are stressed, when bad things happen in our lives, we lose energy. It takes up a lot of energy. But there are things that add energy to our lives, like seeing a good friend, right? Getting an A on a test, perhaps. having a vacation, having a break when you didn't expect it. All of these things can be little deposits in your brain bank account. What she says is, when withdrawn, we are much more likely to be we're dysregulated when we're withdrawn. But when we are doing well and we've got surplus, right? We got our homework done the night before, we had a great breakfast, we come into school, we're with our favorite teacher and our best friend in class, first period, life is pretty good. If our parents are divorced and we left our homework at our dad's house and we're late getting out of the house and we don't have our homework and the bus driver's mad at us because we're late, and then we come in and then we're told we've lost it, we can't ever make up that assignment, right? And the teacher says, this is the 4th time this has happened. I don't believe you that it's at your dad's house, whatever it is. Right? Do you see how many withdrawals are from your bank account? And so what we want to do is figure out how can we put as many, especially when we're depleted, how can we get as many deposits in there as possible? The top 3 are probably sleep, diet, and exercise. If we can get a good night's sleep, we eat well, and we get some exercise in, those are the biggest deposits, as well as just having good friends. All right, give it time. Have you ever noticed how important time is, that when you are stressed, that something horrible you may be really upset on a Thursday night, but by Friday morning it's like, oh, that doesn't seem like quite such a big deal. The time can be really helpful and soothing. Remember, the hallmarks of dysregulation are this sense of urgency and exaggeration. But when we've got time, that sense of urgency goes away. But in this moment, when we're in fight, flight, or freeze, our brain doesn't allow us to access this. Timeouts work. But I don't think it's because of a punishment. I think timeouts work because it's helpful to get away from what's stressing us. Does that make sense? So I wouldn't say you've got to go to this corner. I'd say just walk the dog. Go hang out in your room, listen to music, if that's your thing, right? And then come back. And then let's talk about it when we each have our best brains. Then the other thing is, can we use our people? Because relationships are regulating. And they're one of the most regulating things we can have, people around us. Just like dysregulation is contagious, so is emotional regulation. When we're around people who are calm, when we're around people who we know care about us, it's easier for us to be regulated. Sometimes I'll fly, and if there's a lot of turbulence, I'll look at the flight attendant. And if the flight attendant is just kind of reading a magazine or on their phone or whatever, I look at them, I'm like, oh, things must be okay. If the pilot came out and said, I've never had turbulence like this before, I'm worried what's going to happen, all of a sudden his dysregulation would become mine and everybody else's, right? So you can see how this happens. But what really it is, when we're around people who are calm and we're upset, when we can be that calm person when other people are upset, what it says is, my nervous system is telling yours that it's okay. You don't have to be in fight, or freeze. Something's going on that's upsetting. But when I'm calm, it means that you can be calm too. And it can be adults, it can be caring with one another. But this is a lot of our work, is finding people who can be calm. Sometimes there are people who will just work us up when we're upset. Do you have those people in your lives? Right? That'll make it really hard. Words are often unhelpful. Does anyone, when you're really upset, started talking at you and giving you advice? And it's like, I don't want to hear that. And maybe the advice is good, but it's like, I'm not processing any of that because I can't listen. But being present is helpful. I want you to watch. So he is going to talk about a time that his daughter was wildly dysregulated. And just watch how his tone of voice, it's just his tone of voice that gets her to quiet. She's very young. She's just been born. But take a look at how his tone of voice quiets her.
Yo, comedian Michael Jr. here. As you know, I just flat out enjoy doing comedy. But one of the things I love way more than that is being a dad. Not too long ago, I'm going through some video footage and I run into this video of my youngest daughter being born. Now, of course, I was there. I actually took the video, but I had never really experienced it from this perspective before. Now look, we're in the hospital room. She's sticky and she's baby and all that stuff, and she's in the middle of crying. And then I speak up. I start talking to her, and watch how she responds when she hears my voice. It's okay, Portland. Look, I'm right here. It's okay. It's okay. I'm right here. I'm right here. We're doing just fine. It's okay. It's okay. I'm right here. Right here. Yeah. It's okay. It's okay, baby. It's okay. That was pretty awesome. So check it. A few minutes later, the nurse starts working on her, puts her pamper on her, and I'm not saying anything, and she actually starts to cry again. Then I speak up, she hears my voice, and stops crying. Like again. But I want you to notice what else happens after I tell her that I love her.
Mom hold you.
Portland, it's okay. It's okay. It's good. It's good. It's good. I'm right here. I'm right here. I am right here. I love you. I love you. I love you. Yeah, I'm right here. I'm right here. It's okay. It's okay. That's just phenomenal.
Can you see how just tone of voice can make such a big difference? Because a baby's nervous system is really no different than ours. And having a calm person around just quiets that for us. Then finally, can you know your strategy? What are the things that quiet your nervous system? Each of us is different. So what calms me may be different than what calms you, right? And so, but it's important that we know what is our strategy, what quiets our nervous system when we're upset. Because then we can, once we can know, okay, I'm getting upset, there's something going on, I can feel my heart rate going up, I can feel my fists clench. What's my strategy? And how can I implement that strategy? The goal is to figure out what quiets our nervous system. And again, this is a picture of a boy in timeout. I don't think it's the timeout that does it, but I do think that that's his regulation strategy, is his dog, right? And that's what's actually going to calm him down. So there are things that movement can be helpful. If it's hard to sit still, movement can be really helpful. Music for some people. Finding distraction can be helpful to get our focus off of something. Our pets. Breathing is remarkably helpful. If you haven't tried it, it's amazing how our breathing can quiet our nervous system. Engaging in hobbies, mindfulness practices, all of those things. So I just want you to think, just for a second, then you don't have to share it because you guys aren't big on sharing, I get that. But I want you to think for yourselves, like what is a strategy that quiets my nervous system? What is it and sometimes the things that we often use are not things that quiet our nervous system. And so what does quiet that? And that's what I want you to be thinking about. And then Larry Steinberg, who's a developmental psychologist, his thing is, and we talked about this morning, about how grades aren't necessarily going to get you to be successful in your life in a way that you might hope. But self-regulation is probably the single most important contributor to our ability to achieve our mental health and our success. So this is the key. If we can focus more on this, and that's why I think high schools need to focus more on helping kids learn how to regulate, so we can bring our best brains to things, so we can engage with one another in healthier ways, so that we can then begin and we can learn how we can regulate better in our families, in our work, all of those pieces. And then I'll end with this, and then I'll be up here if you guys have any questions, all right? Almost anything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you.